A Florida family's vacation ended in tragedy when 18-year-old Giovanni Pelletier went missing, and authorities have now confirmed that the body found in a Florida pond is indeed him. With questions still swirling about his final hours, I'm going to be speaking with a coroner about the forensic process, what the identification means, what we still need to know, and what might be happening behind the scenes. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. This is not an update I wanted to bring to you here on Sidebar. We talked about the case of Giovanni Pelletier, the 18-year-old North Carolina teen who went missing earlier this month. We did a whole sidebar on him. Well, now authorities have confirmed that the body found in a Manatee County pond is indeed Giovanni. The Manatee County Sheriff's Office said the District 12 Medical Examiner's Office used dental records to confirm his identity. They say his body was in such an advanced state of decomposition that it required additional forensic testing. The cause of death, to be clear, we don't know what it is. It hasn't yet been determined. As officials, they await toxicology results, which could take several weeks. But if you haven't been following the case, I'm going to catch you up. 18-year-old Giovanni Pelletier had traveled with his mom, Bridget, her fiancé, and his 4 younger siblings to Englewood, Florida. That's on the Gulf Coast. It's south of Tampa and St. Petersburg. But this trip wasn't just about beaches and family time. It was something else. It had more meaning, because Giovanni was also planning to meet some cousins from his dad's side of the family, people that he had never met before, barely remembered, in hopes of reconnecting. But instead, days later, he's found dead in a pond off I-75. This case is complicated. It stretches across multiple Florida counties and involves several different law enforcement agencies. It includes conflicting accounts of what happened in Giovanni's final hours. So I want to walk you through the timeline here. Now, Giovanni grew up in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, but until age 4, he lived in Florida. And after turning 18 this past April, Bridget, his mother, says he became very curious about his father's side of the family. She's of Italian and Puerto Rican descent. His dad is African American. And Giovanni wanted to connect with that part of his family tree. Before the trip, he joined a group chat with 3 paternal cousins. And then you go to August 1st at around 1:30 a.m. Those cousins apparently picked him up from Englewood. They were reportedly headed to Mims, that's on the other side of the state. It's several hours away. Now, why the cousins, who apparently had never met Giovanni before, picked him up so late at night, that we still don't have an answer for at the time of this recording. And by the way, the cousins' ages haven't been made public either, so just keep that point. But not long after leaving, Giovanni sent disturbing messages to his family. One to his mom simply read, "Mom, help." Now, Bridget was asleep at the time. She didn't see it until the morning. He also apparently sent similar messages to his grandfather, his aunt. And by the time Bridget checked her phone, she had missed a FaceTime call from Giovanni. And there was a voicemail from his paternal grandfather saying there had been, quote, some kind of altercation, and that the cousins had left him on the roadside in Bradenton. It's about 50 miles or so away from where the family had been vacationing. That's the allegation. Now, Bridget apparently tried to track Giovanni's location using his phone's GPS. She found his backpack, she found his phone inside, and this was near State Road 70 and I-75. But here's the thing. She later told People magazine, "My son eats, sleeps, showers, breathes his phone." She said he would never have left it behind. So how did Giovanni end up outside the car? Well, according to Bridget, one cousin later told her that they'd smoked marijuana with Giovanni after picking him up. This is an allegation. The cousin claimed that Giovanni got paranoid, cursed at him, threatened him with a knife during a roadside confrontation, and then ran off. Again, this is an allegation. But I will tell you that that account is slightly different from the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office public statement. And that statement said that Giovanni, quote, began acting erratically before exiting the vehicle and walking away near State Road 70. ABC News has reported that this information likely came from the cousins. But search efforts, they began across multiple counties immediately. Giovanni's family offered a $10,000 reward for information leading to his location, the arrest or conviction of anyone responsible for harming him. That reward, by the way, was reportedly later increased to $25,000. And according to posts from Bridget and other relatives on social media, Giovanni's paternal relatives didn't participate in any of the searches. Now, we couldn't confirm that on our own, but that's, again, another allegation in this case. Not to take away from this story in any way, but one of the reasons we can stay on top of this, follow it, bring you any kind of updates is because of our sponsors. And one of those sponsors is OneSkin. Now, I have to tell you, I know a thing or two about hair, and a lot of people are talking about this right here. This is OneSkin's scalp serum, the OS01 hair. People are obsessed with it. If you're familiar with OneSkin, you know about their patented OS01 peptide and how it's scientifically proven to target aging at the cellular level. It's what powers their skin and sun care. Well, now it is targeting age-related hair loss and thinning. So listen to this. People are sending in reviews like, my hair has never felt this thick and full. My scalp feels healthier than ever. I started 3 months ago and I'm seeing new little hairs on my scalp line. One customer even wrote, I have tried everything for hair growth and finally I'm getting a response from my hair. And it's not just talk. OneSkin scientists did a clinical study showing that after 6 months, participants had significantly thicker and denser hair. And I'll tell you, one of the things that's really great about OneSkin is the science. Their OS01 peptide is the same one that's also behind their cult favorite skin line. So I was thrilled to hear that they also have this product to support hair longevity at the root. Literally, OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. So for a limited time, you can try OneSkin with 15% off using code SIDEBAR at oneskin.co. That's 15% off at oneskin.co with code SIDEBAR. And after you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support Sidebar. Tell them that we sent you. Brevard County Sheriff Wayne Ivey spoke at a press conference. This is before Giovanni's body had been found. And his goal was to clarify how his agency got involved. And he said the search parties in Brevard County were organized because of misinformation about the car that was involved, and there was no credible evidence Giovanni was ever in Brevard. We also spoke, by the way, with investigator Billy Lane from the volunteer group We Are the Essentials. This is an incredible group. It's a team of former law enforcement and military personnel who use their skills to help families locate missing loved ones. It's an incredible work that they do. Lane, who was brought in on this case, described their approach here.
We started a conversation Sunday night with the family, and what we try to do is provide ground assistance. We are, ground searchers. So our job is to gather as much facts as possible. We have to start our own investigation because typically law enforcement won't share information with us, which is fine. So we start from ground zero using the family's information that they are able to provide us of the locations, times, dates, and places. And then Monday morning, we were on the ground at 7 a.m. to start a ground search, and we started moving forward from there.
And what did you do after that?
So our ground searches typically were isolated to the road area, which was very near where the family lived at. And this was based on several factors. One of them was text messages that we received, and we did a timeline of the text message. And based on the Help Mom Help text message, he would have been in this area in the vehicle. Based on the other information the mother had provided us, based on the GPS path of travel from the home back to MIMS, would taken the car down that road. So we felt like this is a very important area. Plus, it hadn't been searched based on our information. And this was a 10-mile stretch of river road from Winchester to I-75 that was very secluded. There was no cameras out here. It's very wooded. There was construction zones out there. There are areas that people could have pulled off to the side of the road and stopped without anybody seeing them. Plus, at 2 o'clock in the morning on this road, they had very little traffic. So our job was to start eliminating, our job was to try and locate him alive and in good health. But the secondary is to try to eliminate areas that he is not in. So we were out there hoping to find him. But in the meantime, we were eliminating areas. We use a mapping program, and it shows every step we take. But what's most importantly, shows every step we don't take. So we're able to close in those areas. So for 5 days, we spent on the ground searching. But in addition to that, we also provided support for the family. We were answering questions for the family as former law enforcement officers. Why isn't this happening? When will this start happening? And what should we expect? In addition to that, we're also filtering outreach through media sources so we could keep Giovanni's story alive in the news. So that was very time-consuming, to say the least. It was very encompassed. There was a lot of moving parts of this, and the fact that this could be a search that would span more than 50 miles from the home. So we had to organize and structure our search based on facts that were being given at the time.
Then we go to last weekend, and authorities preliminarily identified Giovanni's remains that were found in a retention pond near where he was last seen. Now, previously, the Manatee County Sheriff's Office said the body was so decomposed that additional testing was needed to confirm the identity. But we now know through the identification of those dental records that these are indeed the remains of Giovanni Pelletier. Bridget had started a GoFundMe to cover search expenses, but after Giovanni's death, she updated it to raise funds for funeral, medical, legal costs to raise more than $32,000 so far. The Change.org petition is now calling for the FBI to step in, citing the case's multi-county nature, potential gang connections, possible interstate elements, and it warns that without federal involvement, key evidence could be lost and those responsible may never be held accountable. Okay, so I want some perspective on this, and who better to bring in than Dr. Naida Rutherford from the Richland County Coroner's Office. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time. A little confused about dental records exactly. So can you walk us through how dental records exactly are used to confirm the identity of a body, especially when you have an advanced decomposition case like Giovanni's?
Well, sometimes that's all we have to go on. So when you have a person who is missing and you have a possible identity, one of the things that I say to families is, I don't want to give you someone else's bad news. So please, if you can remember where your child, where your loved one may have had dental procedures done. Do they have a bridge in their mouth? Did they ever get veneers? Did they have their wisdom teeth removed? Give me a little bit of that dental history that you remember and where they may have been seen, because those x-rays lined up against the skeletal x-rays are going to give us a pretty clear picture.
This may be a juvenile question. I think I say that all the time when I interview an expert such as yourself, because this is not my expertise. But would I be correct in saying that when you're dealing with teeth, they are harder to destroy than other parts of the body, and while other parts of the body may be would not be able to be used to be for purposes of identification or easily destroyed, the teeth are different?
They are. They're going to typically stay with the skull unless there's been some sort of blunt force injury, crushing injury, or projectile injury to the face. So sometimes if we're putting together a skull, because that's what's going to happen in the autopsy suite, this advanced decomposed body, not only will the pathologist take a look, but they will often bring in a forensic anthropologist who will help to piece the skull and lay out the skeleton as much as possible to look for blunt force injuries, to look for any crushing injuries, sawing injuries, cutting injuries that may have happened to the bone. And it's no different for the teeth. A lot of times when we find a skull, the teeth are still there unless they had some sort of dental procedure where teeth were removed. And so comparing those dental records for someone that we believe it to be is very helpful.
And how accurate is it?
It's accurate. There's
Okay.
no two people have the exact same mouth. And so if you compare those dental records and they line up, that's the great thing about looking at the skeleton, is that your teeth you have your normal anatomy, right? But most of us have had a cavity. We're not going to have a cavity in the exact same spot. Those things should line up. And he's 18. He has to have some sort of dental history.
That's a good point. And by the way, just generally speaking, we're talking about a very specific state of these remains, where they were found. What are the challenges that coroners face when you have a body that's discovered in water in this advanced state of decomposition, and why does the decomposition happen?
So first of all, you can have a complete skeletonization of a body within 7 days. And most people don't know that. So they think that you're dealing with this whole body here. So let's talk about the factors. What has been the average temperature in Florida during the time that this young man was missing? What was the precipitation levels? Was it rainy? Was it windy? What was going on during that time? Also, is there any animal activity for that area? So you have to think about gators. You have to think about any wildlife that may have come in contact with that body. Just vultures, for example, they're going to fly around where a decomposed body is. And so what is it that has happened to this body? And it does prove to be challenging because you not only have the outdoor elements, the temperature, but you also have water, and wet things break down faster. And so that moisture level is going to be really important. And what state, advanced decomposition can mean a number of things. If he was submerged, those gases started happening and he floated back to the top, he's not even going to look like himself for a visual identification. So they can only go off of what he was wearing, proximity of where he may have gone missing, but those dental records and then DNA are going to be the most helpful things to make sure that this is young man. But the other thing about this is, where are the other things that should have been with him? His cell phone, his backpack, his clothing items. Was he found naked? Was he found wearing clothes? So many things come into play because all of those things are going to tell us a little piece of the story.
Yeah, what do you think about it? I mean, this is a very interesting place for him to be found, right? This pond.
So here's my number one thought. Red flag leaving at 1:30 a.m. If my 18-year-old son is leaving at 1:30 in the morning, I'm staying up to make sure that he is where he tells me he's going to be. That was weird to me. But again, we listen and we don't judge. The other things that are challenging for me, the toxicology report, was his body so advancedly decomposed that we have tissue? Do we have liver? Because that's probably going to be one of the things that's going to help us the most. A week out, we should still have some of the organs to be able to test: brain, liver, kidney. Do we have eyes? We don't know. Again, was there animal activity? Eyes are sometimes one of the first things to go. And so this is just a weird case. If you look at the time frame, 35 minutes max that he was gone from his mom. He called for help. He tried calling several people. He sent text messages. The cousin supposedly tried to call. What was this erratic behavior? Was he known to have erratic behavior? I want to look at his mental health history. I want to look at his medical history. What happened in this very short time frame? And did he just spaz out and the cousins got freaked out and left him? Or were they doing drugs? Did this young man present something to them and say, hey, let's try this? We will never know. We need those cousins to talk.
By the way, what about toxicology? So how does toxicology testing work, and why does it take several weeks to determine the cause of death in a case like this?
Well, you want to be careful. You don't want to make any rush decisions. So you're looking, instead of us having blood and urine samples and possibly vitreous samples, which is from the eye, those things can be run a little bit faster. But when you're looking at the liver, brain, kidney, you have to do some more specialized testing, and you want to confirm that testing. So it's not about just doing a test and saying, hey, we see opiates here or we see marijuana. It's about going the step further and trying to quantify those positive results so that you have a number to see if they fall within toxic or critical ranges.
I was wondering, one of the things that might be a challenge, if you have multiple jurisdictions that are involved, right? What role does a coroner play? How do they coordinate with law enforcement? And if you are dealing with multiple jurisdictions, multiple agencies?
So in the state of Florida, they have a medical examiner system. So what they typically do is the medical examiner's office is going to be the one that's performing that autopsy, but they have investigators that are bringing them information from the scene so they can try to piece together what may have happened to this young man. In some areas, they're called investigator coroners, deputy coroners, coroner investigators. And so I know that the state of Florida has investigators that go out to scenes, but they're just bringing information back to that medical examiner. In my jurisdiction, we work with wherever the body is found, that's who has jurisdiction. So even if a resident lived in Richland County, we had this case a few years ago, the person went missing from Richland County, but they were found a few counties over. Where that body is found becomes the jurisdiction, but they will work with us to receive any information that we may have. And it's usually just law enforcement at that point.
And for this case, there's still a lot of unknowns, right? When we talk about exactly how he died, the circumstances surrounding his death, obviously there's speculation out there. There's questions that might need to be answered. There could always be the possibility of natural versus unnatural causes of death, right? So what is the evidence there? When evidence is limited or it's conflicting, how do you determine whether something is natural or unnatural?
So here's the thing. We know that this young man left in a healthy state. So this is probably not going to be a natural death. At best, it would be undetermined. If they can't find any signs of trauma, the toxicology comes back clean, they will more than likely rule this death as undetermined, maybe rule it as accidental if they thought that he may have wandered into the pond and somehow drowned. But I'm speculating that there may be an undetermined cause of death if there's nothing that pops positive on that toxicology. If they don't see any signs of trauma, they don't see any signs of like blunt force injuries, crushing injuries, anything that looks like he may have been strangled. Determining whether or not he drowned would be difficult because his body is in this body of water. He's swollen. He's going to, bloat and not look like himself. They could take a look at the lungs and see if there's a large amount of fluid in there. But again, he's been in this pond possibly for 7 days or so.
Would you be able to determine time of death?
You would look at bug activity for that, and then you would look at when he was last known to be alive, and you would have a range, but it's not going to be exact unless you find more information that helps you narrow down that time frame.
One thing you mentioned, and I've actually talked to other forensic investigators about this, there is an aspect to your job, and I think you were talking about it, where do you ever conduct interviews yourself with witnesses, family members? Do you take that information, those reports, and how do you determine whether or not it is completing the picture, if it's corroborating the picture? Do you just take it as true? What's your role in trying to determine, because a lot of it is based on, other, witness testimony and what might be the circumstances surrounding a person's death, not just the body itself. What is your role in that?
We put together a timeline. And so the most important question is, when were they last known to be alive and what state of health were they in prior to them going missing? And so we try to put together that timeline. And sometimes when we're talking to families, they give us a lot more information than they would give to law enforcement because we're the coroner's office. We're doing an investigation to try to figure out what happened to your loved one. So they're sometimes sharing information with us that adds to that timeline or takes away from that timeline. When we go and talk in my jurisdiction, we take law enforcement with us. They have body cameras, we don't. And so they turn that body camera on. They're speaking to us. They're giving us information. But anyone who's on that scene, we're going to isolate them, move them away from each other, try to get the full story from everyone that we can. And then law enforcement is going to take information that we give them and information that they gather and put it together. And we typically will do what's called a fatality review so that we can compare information and see if there are any gaps in the stories, any inconsistencies that they may be able to take and go down a different path. Sometimes people tell the coroner's office things that they would never tell law enforcement, and we're able to share that information.
Dr. Naida Rutherford, I got to tell you, I learned so much when you come on. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk about this. It's really a heartbreaking case. We're going to continue to follow it. We want to see what happened here with Giovanni. But really, thank you for making it easy for us to understand. Always appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.